This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to this segment. I'm Phil McKinney, and you're listening to Killer Innovations. Killer Innovations is all about the ideas, creativity, and innovations, and encouraging you to step out and take that risk with that idea that you're working on. Our guest today is Tara Rail. Tara is a speech-language pathologist who specializes in working with people with autism and related disorders. She was the inspiration for Hacking Autism, an effort that I started when I was still at HP. It all got started from the families of her clients who were looking for anything that could help their family members have a full and meaningful life. And when I retired from HP graciously allowed me to take it out and form a nonprofit of which Tara is a co-founder. You can visit and check it out over at hackingautism.org. And also one little other deep, dark secret here is Tara is my oldest daughter. So, Tara, this has to be a little strange for you.
Absolutely.
So share a little bit about yourself. I know a lot about you, but the audience here for the show may or may not know a little bit about you because of our work in Hacking Autism. So give us a little bit of background about yourself.
As you said, I'm a speech-language pathologist. I graduated from Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and from there I worked 4 years in the public school system where I saw autism on the rise. And I saw more and more of my clients getting this diagnosis and more of us not really feeling totally adequate in how to go about it. So I started stealing tech from your house to try with my clients. And
you were also stealing tech from HP.
Yes. Borrowing anything labs would loan me. And I really saw my clients responding really positively to it. So after 4 years in the public school, I actually transitioned to a private clinic working specifically with some of the needs that clients with autism have, typically more on what's considered the high functioning side of the spectrum. And did that for a few years and then decided I had my own ideas and I wanted to give them a try. So I opened up my private practice, and that's what I do now.
So give us a little bit of background on autism. You know, the statistics are getting to be quite shocking. Most people have some familiarity simply from the standpoint of either child, grandchild, niece or nephew, or somebody you know. But maybe there's some people out there who don't have a perspective on what autism is and how big of a problem this really is becoming.
Autism is present from early childhood. We typically see symptoms appearing before the age of 3 years old. It's characterized by rigid and repetitive behaviors, but also individuals having difficulty with communication, forming relationships, abstract concepts, and perspective taking, which is understanding the thoughts and feelings of others. Right now, we're at 1 in 68 children born in America today have some form of autism or are on the spectrum. So that's about 3.5 million Americans today have autism.
Right. And is it true or not true, though, that it seems to be more prevalent amongst boys than it is with girls?
It is. It's 1 in 42 boys, whereas it's 1 in 189 girls. So it's about a 4-to-1 ratio.
And we've heard all the theories as to people think about what causes autism. So what's the latest thinking on that?
There's so many different thought processes there and ways people lean, and really there's no consensus out there yet. They've done a ton of research. They do see some forms they're leaning towards genetic links. Others they're learning to environmental pieces that trigger a genetic piece that's already there. There's really no consensus, and it's a heated debate out there.
So you call it an autism spectrum disorder. So what does it mean when you say a spectrum?
The saying out there around some of the communities is you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Just as you and I or anybody else are unique individuals, it's the same with people on the autism spectrum. We get everything from individuals who are nonverbal, who have impaired intellectual abilities, to people who are savants with exceedingly shocking intellectual abilities, who may or may not be verbal or non-verbal. So it's really a spectrum because each individual who has autism is dealing with different pieces of that diagnosis and different pieces, different abilities and disabilities involved in it.
So in this case, you and I gave a speech, I don't know what it was, 3 or 4 years ago, at the American Society of Diversity Hiring in Atlanta, where we kind of introduced this whole concept of hiring for neurodiversity. So tell us a little bit about kind of your thoughts on the background on this concept of neurodiversity.
Looking right now, as I said earlier, about 3.5 million Americans right now are on the spectrum in some way. We have a lot of these individuals in the workplace or wanting to be in the workplace, who have the abilities to be in the workplace. We have a lot of kids coming up through the education system who are going to graduate, and a lot of them want to be an active member of society. But if we actually look at the statistics out there when it comes to employment, only 34% of those on the spectrum are employed, and 1 in 5 of those are only full-time. The average income for them are $8.10 an hour, which is actually much lower than other disability comparison groups.
Right, and the concept here on the whole neurodiversity is the fact, as I talked in segment 1 of the show today, about hiring for diversity. I would argue that you also need to look at thought patterns and how people think from the standpoint of adding another diversity layer to your hiring process. Some people are linear thinkers, some of them are spatial thinkers, some of them are what I would call connection thinkers. They can keep in their head these random dots and connect it. Now, in the case of the autism spectrum, they refer to us as neurotypicals, which I always think is a strange term. And they're not typical. And if you're looking to kickstart your innovation team and your creativity, it is about hiring those people that do think differently.
Absolutely. The nice thing that they can absolutely bring to the table is that a lot of people, I would even argue sometimes the majority of individuals on the spectrum, are visual thinkers, and even if they don't have something visually in front of them, they're visually thinking in their head and visually picturing things. So for a lot of us, somebody will say a word and we can see the word in our head. They'll see the picture in their head and they can rotate it and they can replay things in their head that they've seen visually before, which drives their teachers in school crazy because they're bored, so they're replaying their favorite video game in their head. But when it comes to the office place, they can replay exactly how a test went and be able to figure out the problem then, because they can hyper-focus on those important details and where their smarts lie.
Yeah, and I think that's important because those kinds of thought patterns and those ability to get those people in to be part of your team is critically important. So, Tara, when we get back, what I'd like for you to do is to share maybe 3 lessons from organizations when you think about hiring for neurodiversity that you found out from companies and others from the standpoint of hiring these kinds of people. Are you open to being the teacher then?
I'll give it a whirl.
Great. I'll be posting links to everything we talk about in the show notes at killerinnovations.com, so go check it out. Also, if you want to get connected, text the word innovate to 33444 or send an email to innovate@killerinnovations.com. You do not want to miss the next segment where we talk about those things that you can do to actually hire people in on the autism spectrum, and they can have a big positive impact on your organization. Stay right there. I'm Phil McKinney, and you're listening to Killer Innovations.
Biz Talk Radio. This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
So welcome back to this segment. Our guest today is Tara Rail, a speech-language pathologist specializing in working with people with autism. The topic today is around diversity, and diversity from a standpoint of how do you hire certain traits into your innovation teams that are really going to drive your innovation pipeline. And the topic specifically for this segment is around neurodiversity, hiring people who think differently than you. And the discussion for this segment really is going to be around those people that are on the autism spectrum. It's 1 out of every 68 being diagnosed with autism. So they are already in the workforce. odds are if you work for any kind of an organization of any significant size, you already have people in your workforce that are on the autism spectrum. And the key here is to leverage them. Take advantage of the fact that they see everything differently. They look at your problems, your opportunities, your potential innovations, and they see everything differently. So, Tara, as we stated, we close out the last segment, you were going to give us those 3 lessons that I've learned from organizations that have hired people on the autism spectrum. So, are you ready?
Ready.
Ready. Good. Give us number 1.
Number 1 is what I like to call phone a friend. If you have no experience with individuals on the autism spectrum, someone you know does. As you said, 1 in 68 are diagnosed currently. So either you're impacted or someone close to you has been impacted. So the first thing you need to do is really make sure that you understand autism. So go talk to a person with autism. Go to a local autism society meeting. If it's your niece, go over and spend an hour or 2 with her and talk to the families, talk to those who are supporting these individuals and see what their life is like and what they do have to offer.
So are there outside organizations that could also help that? I mean, I know I'm familiar with Specialist Stern, which actually helps companies think about the hiring process of bringing these kinds of people in, as far as training leaders to really think about this.
Typically your state government as well has representatives and people who are helping train, not even just with autism, but, returning vets, et cetera, who are working to overcome traumatic brain injuries or other pieces. So typically they also have systems where they're training individuals and bringing them in, as well as there's groups out there run by parents and individuals with autism through the Autism Society or Autism Speaks, places like that where people are coming together and looking for job training and collaborating.
Yeah, and I think the challenge with all of that is if you're not familiar with it, then it's the fear of the unknown.
Exactly.
Right? And like I said, odds are if you work in any kind of size organization, you've got them in your workforce now. They typically are the people who maybe aren't as socially outgoing. They're not as engaged as a team. They sometimes will do things that people may consider as rude or inconsiderate. They think of it as being factual and honest, which is a trait for people on the spectrum. So let's go on to number 2. What's the number 2?
Number 2 is ask audiences. Just as you were just saying, there's probably already people within your organization who are on the autism spectrum, either diagnosed or undiagnosed at this point in time, because you got to take it into consideration. A lot of the workforce now came through the schools at a time where they didn't necessarily have this diagnosis, or their diagnosis was less known. So check the culture that you already have in your current workplace. Seek out those individuals who maybe aren't fitting in, whether or not they have autism. If they're having social difficulties and not fitting in, this is a great place to start working on the culture of the workplace and start seeing of ways of integrating them in. So it's not just using their brains, but also making them an active member of your team too.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you work, like I said, in any kind of a large organization, you have these people on. In my previous lives, I've had people that clearly fell onto the spectrum. But they were absolutely amazing in the work that they could produce if you managed them appropriately. And typical management styles for people on the spectrum don't work. But you can leverage that ability for them to hyper-focus, be incredibly smart, high output, if you manage them appropriately, which means you've got to get away from kind of the traditional hiring methods. The typical performance review processes don't work for them. They don't pick up on subtleties. You need to be factual. You almost kind of, a little bit be in their face a little bit to tell them what to do and what not to do and what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. But yeah, the key is many corporate cultures don't accept these kinds of people in. And in many cases, we bounce them out because we don't see them as a cultural fit because, quote, they're not a team player. Or they, maybe they're a little too candid than what's typically allowed. And in some cases, organizations do have to change. And do you think organizations can change effectively to support these people? Absolutely,
but it has to be willing to change. And it can't just be one person high up who needs to make the change. They need to sell it hardcore so that the culture of the company as a whole can make this shift.
Okay, so what's number 3?
Number 3 is what I call the 50-50. These individuals on the spectrum are having to come in and a lot of times fight against what's comfortable for them in order to fit into the culture there. So just as we were saying before, with the culture needing to shift, the workplace needs to put in as much effort as these individuals are putting in as well. If they are coming in just as much as they need training, of how to work in our workplace, the workplace needs training as well. The people on their team, their supervisors, they need a team. As you said before, the HR process needs to change. They cannot go through the same hiring process that everybody else does because a lot of it involves those abstract concepts, which we know are difficult for them.
Yeah, so in case of the hiring, how should companies think about changing the hiring process to get these people in who could be hugely valuable for their innovation and creative work?
A portfolio process where you can actually see what they can do, not necessarily what they can sit and impress you with sitting across a desk from you and using this abstract language to describe their abilities. Look at what their actual abilities are. Take out the computer process in the beginning in which they have to answer questions to even get into their first resume. Instead, be willing to meet with these people face to face and see where they can fit in your organization.
Yeah, I think that is important, right? A lot of larger organizations have gone to this electronic screening method where we ask questions and, based on their answers, you kind of filter their resume to the top of the stack. But in many cases, people on the spectrum can't even get stuck, I guess is a better way to say it. They get stuck to the point where they can't answer the question and they give up and they just never submit. And we miss out on an opportunity for some people who could actually just be phenomenal for an organization.
Absolutely. So you need to find somebody on your team who can meet that person face to face and see the skills that they can bring, and not just their differences that they would bring to the workplace.
Now, over the years, though, I noticed that a lot of families get frustrated because of the lack of employment opportunities for their kids. As we've gone through, these kids have been diagnosed, they've gone through school. In many cases, they're aged out of the support programs they've got. So what are parents doing out there to kind of almost backstop this, right? I mean, I'm seeing some of them are actually going out and starting companies to actually hire people on the spectrum.
That's a big thing. It's a big conversation that I heard in the waiting room a lot when I used to work in Silicon Valley, which was the fathers getting together. What do you do? What do I do? How can we hire our kids in the future? Because no one else will hire my child, even though his IQ's off the charts and he's got the language abilities. Everyone's just going to see a quirky kid and never give my kid a chance. There's companies that have started car washes. Companies have started data testing and data entry and data analysis and really just harnessing what these individuals have to offer, a lot of times regardless of where their intellectual abilities are, and looking just solely at their ability instead of their disability.
Yeah, I mean, the examples you give, the car wash is Rising Tide down in Florida. Tom and his father formed Rising Tide because the second son is autistic. And so 100% of the line staff that actually are cleaning the cars and that are on the spectrum. And it's been phenomenally successful. Also, Asperitech in Chicago doing software testing. In fact, my company, we hire them to do all of our internal web testing now, and it's been a phenomenal experience. But parents trying to do this on their own to hire their own kids, the rest of the business community, we are missing out.
Absolutely.
These kids and these young adults can offer phenomenal value, particularly given that they look at problems differently, which on the innovation game is hugely valuable in looking at everything differently. We need to get out of our shell, go out there and find them, leverage them, and look on how we can bring them in. So, hey, Tara, thanks a lot for coming in. I know this was this is a passionate thing for you and I with hackingautism.org, but I think it's hugely valuable from the standpoint of trying to raise awareness that there are these people that can join and be an effective member of any organization. So, if you want to follow what we're doing, you can check us out over at hackingautism.org. Also, if you want to connect via email with me, just text the word innovate to 33444. If you're outside the U.S., just drop an email to innovate@killerinnovations.com. And when we come back, I've got a brain hack for you, this week's killer question. So stay right there. I'm Phil McKinney, and this is Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.